All right, time to dive in. Today we're going to help you absolutely nail that punch press operator interview. You sent over some really interesting stuff from RoleCatcher, a detailed career guide and some interview prep resources. So we're going to use those to tackle some of those common questions, sprinkle in some really cool career tips from the guide, and even show you how RoleCatcher's AI can help you really tailor your answers for maximum impact.
And it's not about memorizing answers. It's about really understanding what the interviewer wants to hear so you can show off your skills and experience in a way that really clicks with them.
Exactly. It's about showing you're the perfect fit for the role and the company. So let's paint a picture of what a punch press operator actually does. RoleCatcher says it's all about using those powerful machines, often with hydraulic or mechanical systems, to shape those raw materials into specific shapes using dies.
It's like a blend of art and technical skills. You're not just working a machine, you're making sure each punch is perfect, creating parts that meet those exact specifications. And, these machines are powerful, so safety is a huge deal.
Okay, that's a great overview. Now let's get to the heart of interview prep. Those tough questions. RoleCatcher put together a list of common ones, so we'll take them one by one, giving you some insights into how to approach each. The first one's classic. Can you describe your experience operating punch press machines?
It's your time to shine. Don't just list the places you've worked. Really paint a picture for them. Talk about the specific types of punch presses you've run. Were they mechanical, hydraulic, maybe even CNC machines? What materials did you work with? What were some of those tougher projects you handled?
And here's a tip from RoleCatcher. While you're describing all that experience, think about how it matches up with what they want in this job. Really highlight the skills and experience that fit.
Right. And don't be afraid to get a little technical. Show them, punch press operation inside and out. For example, you could talk about different types of guides you've used, or maybe specific problems you've solved, like how to adjust machine settings for materials with different thicknesses.
Great advice. Now, what about those follow-up questions? What if they ask, what were some of the challenges you faced while operating punch presses, and how did you overcome them?
That's where you show your problem-solving skills. Pick a specific example where you ran into something tricky, maybe a machine broke down, or you had a difficult material to work with, or a deadline that was coming up fast. Walk them through the steps, how you figured out the problem, analyzed what you could do, and then actually took action.
And this is the perfect spot to add those insights from RoleCatcher. Their guide talks about how important it is to keep learning in manufacturing. So you can mention how you stayed on top of the newest techniques, or maybe even took a special training course to get better at troubleshooting.
Absolutely. It shows initiative
Yeah.
and a real dedication to growing as a professional.
Okay. Let's move on to question number 2. How do you ensure the proper setup of punch press machines? This is all about showing you're detail-oriented and committed to safety, which are crucial for any punch press operator.
Start by outlining your process for setting up a machine. RoleCatcher emphasizes following the instructions from the manufacturer and doing those thorough pre-operation checks. You could mention the specific things you check for, like making sure the die is aligned right, verifying those safety guards are in place, and looking for any wear or damage.
And here's where RoleCatcher's AI tools can be amazing. Their AI resume builder can look at job descriptions and pick out the skills they really want. So if safety is a big thing in the job, you can make sure your resume shows off your experience with safety protocols and procedures.
That's such a smart way to make your application stand out. Now, back to the question. They might ask something like, can you describe a time when you had to deviate from standard setup procedures?
Oh, that's a tough one. How would you approach that?
Honesty is key. If you've ever had to adjust procedures, explain why you had to, but really emphasize that safety was still your top priority. For example, you could say, in a previous role, we had this unique material that needed a slight change to the standard die setup. Quote, I talked with my supervisor and the machine manufacturer to make sure the change was safe and effective. And we documented the changes so we'd remember in the future.
That shows you can adapt when things are unexpected, while still following those safety guidelines. Okay, question number 3. How do you troubleshoot punch press machine issues?
This is where you really show off that technical expertise. They want to see you can think critically and systematically when things go wrong.
RoleCatcher says you should have a clear process for troubleshooting. You could mention starting with a visual inspection, looking for obvious damage or misalignment, then maybe consult the machine manual or error codes to figure out the potential cause.
And you can mention the resources you use, like online forums or technical documents. It shows you're resourceful and proactive. You can also talk about using diagnostic tools or testing equipment to really pinpoint the problem.
And it's okay to admit you don't always know the answer right away. What's important is showing that you want to learn. Ask for help when you need it, and keep working until you find a solution.
Exactly. Collaboration is so important in manufacturing. You can talk about how you've worked with colleagues, supervisors, or even tech support to solve those complex issues.
Speaking of collaboration, RoleCatcher's guide really highlights the importance of teamwork and communication in punch press operation. You can talk about how you've given updates on the machine, or pointed out potential problems, or even talked about maintenance needs to your team.
Excellent point. It shows you know how important clear communication is in a fast-paced production environment.
Okay. Number 4, can you explain your knowledge of punch press machine maintenance? This is all about showing you're proactive, keeping those machines humming, and preventing downtime.
Think about the routine stuff you've done, like cleaning, lubrication, and checking those key components. You could even talk about the different types of maintenance, like preventative, corrective, and predictive maintenance.
RoleCatcher emphasizes how important it is to follow the manufacturer's maintenance schedule and document everything you do. You can even mention any special training or certifications you have in maintenance.
And if you've ever done something new, like put a new maintenance procedure in place or improved an existing one, definitely share that. It shows you're not just following orders, you're thinking about how to make things better and safer.
And that ties back to RoleCatcher's advice on portfolios. You could include pictures or videos of yourself doing maintenance, or even a case study about a time you figured out and fixed a problem.
A portfolio is a powerful tool, especially in a hands-on field like this.
All right, ready for number 5? This one's all about safety. How do you ensure safety procedures are followed when operating punch press machines?
Safety is non-negotiable. It should always be your top priority, and they want to see that you take it seriously.
RoleCatcher stresses how important lockout-tagout procedures are to prevent those accidental starts during maintenance or repairs. You could also talk about other safety stuff, like wearing the right gear, using those safety guards, and keeping your work area clean and organized.
And it's not enough to just say you follow the rules. Give specific examples of how you've made sure things were safe in your past jobs. Maybe you spotted a hazard and reported it right away. Or maybe you helped train a new person on the safety procedures.
And here's a tip from RoleCatcher's AI interview practice tool. Record yourself answering this question, and then listen back. Are you being clear and concise? Are you giving specific examples? The AI can actually give you feedback to help you polish your answers and feel more confident.
It's a fantastic way to practice. Okay, let's move on to question 6. Can you describe a time when you had to work under pressure to meet a tight deadline?
That classic behavioral question. To see how you handle stress and get things done.
When you answer, choose something that really fits the punch press operator role. Maybe you had a huge order with a short turnaround, or you had to fix a machine right before a deadline.
RoleCatcher reminds us that it's not just about describing the problem. It's about highlighting what you did to solve it. Did you prioritize tasks? Communicate with your team. Think outside the box to find a solution.
And don't forget the outcome. Did you meet that deadline? Did you go above and beyond? Quantifying your results makes your story more believable.
Okay, question number 7. It's about all those different types of punch presses. Can you explain your knowledge of different types of punch press machines and their applications?
Show off your knowledge here. Start by explaining the basic differences between mechanical and hydraulic presses. Mechanical presses use a flywheel to store energy, while hydraulic presses use fluid pressure to generate force. Each type has its own pros and cons, depending on what you're doing.
RoleCatcher actually has this helpful table. It outlines the common uses for each type. Like, mechanical presses are often used for high-speed, repetitive tasks, while hydraulic presses are better for heavy-duty stuff that needs more force.
You can mention other types of presses you've used too, like TERT punch presses. They can do multiple operations in one go. Or CNC punch presses. Those are computer-controlled for more precision and flexibility.
And if you've worked with a specific type that they mentioned in the job description, highlight that.
Absolutely. Show them you have experience with their equipment. It really shows you're a good fit. Now let's go to number 8. Can you explain your experience with quality control procedures for punch press machines?
Here we go. Precision and attention to detail, essential for making sure those parts are perfect.
Start by explaining how you understand quality control standards and the different inspection methods you've used. You could talk about visual inspection, using tools like calipers and micrometers, or even more advanced methods like a coordinate measuring machine.
RoleCatcher emphasizes documenting those quality control checks and keeping accurate records. You could also mention any experience with statistical process control techniques. They use those to monitor and control the process to make sure the quality is consistent.
And if you've ever improved a quality control process or caught a problem before it got big, definitely share that. It shows you're proactive and dedicated to high standards.
Okay, almost done with the questions. Question number 9, it's about materials. Can you describe your experience working with different materials on punch press machines?
This is where you show your versatility and how you can adapt to different production needs. Talk about your experience with different metals like steel, aluminum, brass, copper, and stainless steel.
RoleCatcher points out that each material is unique. You need to adjust machine settings, tooling, and punch speeds. You could discuss the challenges you faced with different materials.
And if you've worked with non-metallic materials, like plastics or composites, definitely mention that too. It shows you can adapt to a wider range of applications.
Okay, the final question. Do you have any questions for me?
Not technically about your experience, but just as important. It's your chance to show you're really interested in the role and the company.
RoleCatcher suggests having a few thoughtful questions ready. You could ask about the company culture, their plans for the future, or even specifics about the role, like the types of projects you'd be working on, or opportunities for professional development.
Pro tip. Don't ask things you could easily find on Google. Show them you've done your research.
Great advice. We've covered a lot. But remember, this is just the beginning. Use these insights as a starting point to prep your own answers. Draw on your own experiences, and tailor them to the company and the role.
And don't forget those resources from RoleCatcher. Their AI tools can help you perfect your resume, practice your answers, and get feedback to boost your confidence.
Go out there and crush it. We're rooting for you every step of the way.
Welcome back. We just went deep on some of those interview questions and how to approach them with confidence. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about where a career as a punch press operator can actually take you.
Yeah, it's not just about getting the job. It's about seeing where you can go from there, what the growth potential is. And RoleCatcher's career guide really lays it out clearly with 3 stages: entry-level, junior, and then senior punch press operator.
And what's really interesting is those stages actually connect back to the skills we were just talking about, like that troubleshooting question. As an entry-level operator, you might be watching someone more experienced, seeing how they figure out and fix problems. But then as a junior operator, you're expected to handle those things more on your own, using what you know and the resources you have.
So you're not just learning the answers, you're learning how to find them. That's a great skill.
Exactly. And by the time you're at the senior level, you're the go-to person, not only fixing problems, but also mentoring others and maybe even training new operators.
So how can someone talk about that kind of progression in an interview?
It's all about showing you're not just there for the paycheck. You're there to learn, grow, and be a part of the team's success. You can work this into your answers by saying something like, I'm excited to learn from experienced operators and really develop my skills so I can take on more responsibility and help the team succeed.
It's like showing them you're already thinking ahead, even before you have the job.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher has these really helpful example profiles for each stage. For a junior punch press operator, they highlight things like setting up machines from work orders, doing quality checks, even helping with training. So in the interview, you can paint that picture of yourself in that role, confidently saying, I'm comfortable working independently, following detailed instructions, and making sure the parts I make are top quality.
That's a great way to show them you're ready to go. And RoleCatcher also talks about building a portfolio, especially as you move into those more senior positions. What kind of things should people put in a portfolio for this job?
Photos and videos can be super impactful. Think about projects where you really had to use your problem-solving skills, maybe a complex part you made, or a time when you had to modify a die to get a specific result. You can even include before and after pictures to show the change.
I love that. It's like bring your work to life.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get a little technical in your descriptions. Talk about the machines you use, the tolerances you had to hit, or any challenges you overcame. It shows you really understand the process.
It's about showing that passion and pride in your work. And that brings us back to RoleCatcher's emphasis on continuous learning, which they say is crucial in this field.
Definitely. Manufacturing is always changing, with new tech and techniques coming out all the time. RoleCatcher says it's important to stay ahead of the curve by going to workshops, joining industry organizations, and even just reading industry publications.
So you're not just learning for the job you have now. You're learning for the jobs of the future.
Right. And if you can weave that into your interview, it shows you're forward thinking and invested in your career. You could say, I love learning new things and expanding my skill set. I recently went to a workshop on advanced die design, and I'm excited to use what I learned.
It's like showing them you're not just a worker, you're a learner.
Speaking of things employers value, let's talk about these advancement paths. RoleCatcher highlights roles like machine shop supervisor, quality control technician, and even manufacturing engineer as potential paths for experienced operators.
Wow, those are exciting possibilities.
Oh.
Let's break those down a little. What does a machine shop supervisor do?
They're in charge of a team of operators, making sure they hit those production targets, keeping the work environment safe, and even fixing problems that pop up. It's a leadership role. You need great communication skills, problem-solving abilities, and the ability to motivate and inspire people.
So if you're interested in leadership, that's a path to look into. What about a quality control technician?
That's all about making sure those parts are perfect, meeting all the specs, using all sorts of inspection methods and techniques. It's detail-oriented. You need to know those quality control standards inside and out, have a good eye, and be committed to precision.
Sounds like a great fit for someone who loves the precise side of punch press work. And last but not least, what about a manufacturing engineer?
That's super technical. It's about designing and implementing those manufacturing processes, making production as efficient as possible, even developing new technologies and methods. You usually need an engineering background and strong problem-solving skills for that one.
So there's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah.
And specialization in this field.
Exactly. And that's something to keep in mind as you prep for your interview. Think about your long-term goals. What skills do you want to learn? What direction do you want to go in?
And how can you use RoleCatcher to get there?
That's a great question, and we're going to explore that more in the next part, where we'll focus on how to use RoleCatcher's AI to really make your answers shine and leave a lasting impression in your interview.
All right, welcome back to the final part of our deep dive on becoming a punch press operator. We've covered a lot of ground already, what the job's all about, how to handle those tough interview questions, and even what your career could look like down the road. Now it's all about putting it all together and acing that interview.
You know, we've given you the knowledge and the tools, but a big part of getting the job is how you present yourself. You want to make a good first impression, let your personality shine through.
It's those soft skills, right? Eye contact, a firm handshake, showing you're genuinely interested in the job and the company.
Enthusiasm is huge. You want them to see that this isn't just any job to you. You're excited about this specific opportunity.
Exactly. You're not just a piece of paper. You're a person with skills and experience and a real passion for this kind of work. Let that passion come through in your answers.
And speaking of answers, let's talk about those behavioral questions again. The ones where they ask you to describe a time you handled a specific situation, like working under pressure or solving a problem, maybe even dealing with a difficult coworker.
Yeah, those can be tough. Any tips?
The STAR method is your friend here. Situation, task, action, result. Start by setting the scene, describe the situation you were in, then explain the task you had to complete, what actions did you take, and finally, what was the result of those actions?
So it's like telling a little story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Exactly. And make sure those stories connect to the punch press operator role. Show them the skills and qualities they're looking for.
And this is where those example profiles from RoleCatcher can be really useful. They give you a feel for the kinds of situations you might face at different career stages, which can spark some ideas for your own stories.
Right. And remember that portfolio we talked about. Bringing photos or videos of projects you've worked on can really make you stand out. It's like letting the interviewers see your skills in action, showing them you're proud of what you've accomplished.
Makes your resume come to life.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get into the details when you're talking about your portfolio. Explain the machines you used, the tolerances you had to hit, any challenges you overcame. That kind of detail shows you really know your stuff.
Shows them you're not just pushing buttons, you get how it all works.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up, one last thing. Confidence.
Super important in any interview.
Yeah.
But how do you boost your confidence if you're nervous?
Preparation is key. The more you prepare, the more confident you'll feel. And this is where those RoleCatcher AI tools can really help. Getting that AI-powered feedback on your resume and practice answers can point out areas to improve, help you refine your responses, and ultimately make you feel more ready for the interview.
Like having a coach right there with you.
Exactly. And remember, confidence is contagious. When you believe in yourself, it shows.
Right.
So go into that interview room knowing your worth, showing off your skills, and ready to make a fantastic impression.
Great advice. And I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered everything from understanding the role to acing the interview and even planning your career path.
And remember, this is just the starting point. The world of manufacturing is always changing, so keep learning, embrace new technologies, and never lose that passion for precision.
We're so excited for you to start this journey. Go out there, nail that interview, and build a career you're truly proud of. Good luck.